Hello friends! It is so good to be back here on Instagram Live talking about books. Today we are going to talk about probably one of the most underrated genres of YA fiction, and that is, drumroll please, historical fiction. Now you might be thinking, boo, ew. But actually, I have selected an amazing list of books that fall under historical fiction that are quite interesting, and maybe you didn't think they classified as historical fiction. Historical fiction can range all sorts of books, from fantasy to horror to romance. So we're going to touch on a few of those. So time to get into your TARDIS. We are going to time travel. We are going to start out by traveling to ancient Arabia with our first book called We Hunt the Flame by Hassas Fazil. Here's the book. Isn't that a beautiful cover? It's just so gorgeous. Nice blues. Oh, it's so pretty. So this book, fans of Sabir Tahir's An Ember and Ashes and Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone should get excited for their next obsession. Magic disappeared long ago from Arya, and the kingdom is suffering for it. In this series opener, inspired by ancient Arabian culture and myth, a young woman embarks on a perilous quest to return magic to the forest of the Ars. Zafira is a talented hunter, but because of her Caliphate social prejudice against women in positions of power, she fends for her village while disguised as a man. When the mysterious Silver Witch tasks her with traveling to a forbidden island to retrieve an artifact that could save civilization, Zafira takes the chance to prove herself. Along the way, she gains unexpected companions, including Nasir, a prince and assassin who's plotting to kill her on behalf of his wicked father. As the two brave constant threats, they develop a surprising connection as well as a mutual attraction. The author blends fantasy tropes to her will to tell a fresh and gripping story about love, honor, and self-discovery that will leave you scrambling for more. So, amazing historical fantasy book. So if you love fantasy, definitely pick this one up. There's some great tropes: enemies to lovers, disguised as a man, magic has disappeared, the chosen one. It is jam-packed with all of your favorite fantasy tropes. And even the best thing is that the sequel's coming out next year. We have it on order, so make sure you place it on hold. Read this one first, then place the second one on hold, and you will be so satisfied. Okay, our next book, we are traveling a little bit farther into the future to feudal Japan with Stormdancer by J. Kristoff. Set in feudal Japan, Stormdancer is a steampunk fantasy with richly drawn mythical creatures and a tough female protagonist. A cruel, selfish shogun sends a father-daughter team on a seemingly impossible task to capture the near-mythical Aroshitora, half-white eagle and half-white tiger. Daughter Yukiko succeeds in snaring the beast, only to discover that they share a special bond. The two band together to survive, facing demons from the underworld and, in an exhilarating climax, the might of the empire itself. The innovative setting, fast-moving plot, vivid descriptions, and thrilling action scenes make this a great introduction into the steampunk side of the historical fiction genre. Ooh, so cool. So if you didn't know, steampunk is a part of historical fiction where it's set in the past, but there's all these cool, like, futuristic machines, so things that you wouldn't really expect to be in, like, the past, but are there. So that's what steampunk is. Plus, it has some mythology and a badass protagonist, so I think you definitely should pick this one up if those are kind of in your fancy. And to boot, it's a trilogy! And all 3 books are published and out and available at the library to pick up. Alright, so we are crossing the sea and going a little bit further into the future to 16th century Great Britain with Queen of the Sea by Dylan McConis. And this is a graphic novel. Let's kind of get that light fixed here. Maybe it's too bright. There we go, Queen of the Sea. So, off the coast of Albion, the old name for Great Britain, is a tiny island, home to the Elysian Sisters, a convent of nuns devoted to caring for shipwrecked sailors and their families. Margaret has lived there for as long as she can remember, but where she came from is a mystery. Though she's eager for answers from the sisters, it doesn't seem like an urgent question until a mysterious guest, Eleanor, who's secretly the exiled Queen of Eleanor of Albion. Soon, Margaret has questions about not only her parents, but Eleanor, the island, and the state of Albion at large. With beautiful cartoonish artwork and historical context, asides about Albion, and information on the nuns' rituals, you'll find yourself immersed in this drama of the 16th century. So if you love British history, this is a really good one. And if you love graphic novels, this is a perfect way to dip your toes into the genre of historical fiction. Now we are going a little bit further into the universe, and again we're going to cross... No, we're not going to cross the pond. We're going to stay in Great Britain for this one, just 100 years into the future, to the 17th century, with A Skinful of Shadows by Frances Hardinge. Set against a backdrop of the English Civil War, which takes place in the area surrounding what is now Oxford. The story opens in a small Puritan village where a girl named Makepeace wrestles with vivid nightmares. When her mother is accidentally killed, the girl is sent to her father's family, of whom she knows nothing. The Felmonts, it turns out, are an old aristocratic clan with insidious secrets. They are able to house the spirits of the dead, a gift they have twisted and inherited cause of Makepeace's clawing nightmares. With an eerie atmosphere which mounts in horror as the story progresses, this paranormal historical fiction book is perfect for fans of Liba Bray's Diviner series. So if you're more into kind of horror and paranormal and ghosts, there are historical fictions books with those tropes in it. There's tons and tons of ghost, paranormal, historical fiction out there because the past, ghosts, that's the perfect matchup. So definitely pick up A Skinful of Shadows at the library. Our next one, we are now crossing the pond to the United States of America in the 18th century. Ooh, does that ring a bell for some reason? It better be, because we're going to talk about the book called Alex and Eliza by Melissa de la Cruz. In the midst of the American Revolution, Eliza Schuyler's thoughts are trained on how to help her new country's troops. But with her family's fortune depleted in battle, she knows her mother's only thought is marrying off her 3 eldest daughters to wealthy suitors. When Eliza meets Colonel Alexander Hamilton, his lack of wealth is just one of the reasons she has no interest in his flirtations. But over time, both Eliza and Alex can't deny they feel themselves being pulled together. De la Cruz paints Eliza as a smart, self-assured young woman fighting for agency in a time when young ladies were judged by their dresses, not their intellect. Though the courtship may seem hopelessly old-fashioned to the modern reader, the sexism and conditions Eliza faces are still relevant today. Obsessed Hamill fans, big disclaimer here. This novelization of the romance between Elizabeth Schuyler and Alexander Hamilton may confuse or confound those who have committed to heart the Broadway musical's cast recording. Just be warned. This is a trilogy, and all 3 books are out in the library, so you should definitely come pick that up if you, A, are obsessed with the Hamilton musical, and love romances. So this is a great one. We're staying in the United States, but moving up 100 years with The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. Jo Kwon knows that because she's Chinese, she does not fit anyone's expectations in 1890 Atlanta, but she doesn't mind. She's happy to be unobtrusive, making hats for the fashionable women in town and staying out of trouble with her adoptive father, Old Jin. But when she loses her job at the hat shop, Jo must find work elsewhere, returning to the household of one of the most important families in town to serve as a lady's maid for their daughter. Saddled with an ungrateful mistress, Jo must face the inequalities in her city. Frustrated, she begins penning an anonymous advice column as Miss Sweetie, dispensing opinions on everything from fashion to suffragettes. Jo is happy with anonymity, but soon Atlanta is abuzz with curiosity about Miss Sweetie, leading Jo to wonder if remaining quiet and safe is the most important thing, or if there are reasons to speak up. Though society may try to push aside those as it sees as different, Jo demonstrates that everyone has a place and a story to be told. So this book is an amazing girl power story set in the 1890s where women weren't allowed to vote, people who weren't white were segregated. So really informational to see back during that time. And yeah, a really great girl power story. So definitely check that one out. Also, hat making shop, that gives me like Howl's Moving Castle vibes and Sophie. I love that. All right, we are moving again a little bit into the future to 1965. Ooh, hippie era. And we are going to talk about We Walked the Sky by Lisa Fielder. In 1965, Victoria Hastings runs away from an abusive home and joins the circus. As she adapts to her new life, she finds love and family in a world entirely different from the one she knew. 50 years later, Victoria's granddaughter Callie flourishes in another circus as a tightrope walker, that is, until her mother takes a job in an animal sanctuary, turning Callie's world upside down as she is forced to leave the circus. Using mementos from her grandmother's similar experience, Callie tries to adapt to life outside of the circus as she searches for her place in this new world. Chapters alternate between 1965 and present day, playing out the changing lives of both young women in parallel. Eventually, the two stories' lines converge, completing a beautiful tapestry that speaks to the bond between mothers and daughters. So if you're not completely sold on historical fiction, this is the book you want to pick up, because one chapter will be in 1965, the second chapter will be at present day, etc., etc. So that's a really good way to kind of get a feeling of the genre. And now we are on our final book, and this pains me because the 1990s, aka the 90s, is now considered historical fiction. Ugh. And as a 90s millennial, that hurts my soul, but I will recommend a book for you and call it historical fiction. Okay, it is Everything Grows by Amy Herman. Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda meets 13 Reasons Why in this novel set in Nirvana-obsessed 1993. While dealing with her mother's recent suicide attempt, Eleanor's classmate and bully, James, dies by suicide. Inspired by a class assignment, Eleanor starts writing to James in her journal. The connection she begins to feel with James sparks a desire in Eleanor to lead her life as honestly as possible, and she begins coming out to friends and family as a lesbian. Coming out feels like a relief at first, but as she gets more comfortable with herself, she feels like there might be more to uncover about her identity. Eleanor's candid descriptions of her explorations and feelings about her identity, her body, and her mother's mental illness ring true and relatable for many, and the journal-style type of writing the author uses makes these heavy topics easier to digest. Highly recommend this one. It is a really cool peek into history about how mental health and the LGBTQ community were viewed in the 90s, because honestly in the 90s we really didn't talk about that kind of stuff. Like, coming out as a lesbian in the 90s was not really heard of. So it's very interesting to hear how different it was even just 30 years ago for mental health and the LGBTQ community. So that is it, my friends. I hope I have debunked historical fiction for you and that you have found some new books to explore, whether it's a fantasy historical fiction, a romance historical fiction, or even a 90s historical fiction. I'm not offended, I swear. Anyways, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. We miss you lots. Don't forget to come into the library and say hello. We have a couple in-person teen programs happening, so make sure you check out our website or come in and pick up a program guide to see what is happening. Until next time, friends, stay safe. Bye.